You got the touch. You got the power. Yeah!
Hello and welcome to But I Digress. I am your host, Nathan, call me Nate Marchand, and this week's episode is for all you do-it-yourself writers out there, because I will be discussing self-publishing, which is an exciting new frontier being blazed by many independent writers these days, who have decided to buck the traditional world of publishing houses and editors and agents in favor of getting their stories out there themselves. Now, I was introduced to self-publishing by my friend and fellow writer Nick Hayden, who, even though he had already published a pair of fantasy novels with a small publishing house, he's got a third one coming up pretty soon, by the way, he had a lot of other ideas and a lot of other stories and collaborative works that he had made that probably wouldn't find a home otherwise if he had tried to go the traditional route. So he investigated websites like Smashwords and Lulu and CreateSpace to find new homes for these stories that probably wouldn't find one otherwise. And he was the one who pointed me in the right direction and told me the places to go to look and what his experiences had been with them and such. And that eventually led to the publications of these little books, which I've talked about before on this vlog. We have The Day After, a short story collection that features works by myself, Nick, his wife Natasha, and my friend Keith Osmond. And Destroyer, a pulpy science fiction novella I co-wrote with Natasha and Timothy Deal. So, with all of that in mind, we will now dive into the perils and privileges of self-publishing, beginning with the perils. The first peril that you'll have to navigate is making sure that your manuscript is professional and well written. Not that I'm doubting any of your writing or storytelling abilities, but one of the advantages of going through a traditional publishing house is your manuscript will go through several editors and readers who will catch any grammatical or continuity errors that you may have missed, even though you did your best to send them as clean a manuscript as possible. Because I will tell you right now, whether it's through a traditional publishing house or self-publishing, badly written books will not sell. Unless it happens to be 50 Shades of Grey, at which point you can write it like a perverted 14-year-old and somehow sell millions and millions of copies. But I digress. So, make sure you have some friends look over your manuscript before you throw it out there for everyone else to look at. These friends could be avid readers, they could be writers, they could be editors, but they can do that editing process for you to make sure that you have a good manuscript to send out there. Another peril that you'll run into is you'll have to do most of the promotion of your book on your own. Now, I know if you went the traditional route and you were with a small publishing house, you'd have to do that anyway, but when you're self-publishing, you're pretty much on your own. You won't have the resources of that publishing house's advertising department putting together ad campaigns for your book. And you also can't guarantee that you'll get your book available on all of the big online bookstores where people do most of their shopping, like Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com. Although, depending on the website, you can remedy some of those things. Lulu.com, if you want to invest in the extra money, offers advertising campaigns where they'll promote your book in some capacity for 1, 2, 3, 6 months, something like that. Like I said, it costs a lot of extra money, and it's up to you to decide if you want to invest that and hope you can make it back. And if you go with the Kindle, your Amazon will make your ebook available on Amazon.com. It'll be listed there so people can find it. And if you use a website like CreateSpace.com to make print books, that is owned by Amazon, so everything that you make on CreateSpace will then be made available on Amazon. So, if you're clever, you can find ways to do it. But if you're not a shameless self-promoter like myself, you'll have to be a little bit more creative. But writers are nothing if not creative, right? As I've hinted at, another peril that you'll run into is you will have to fund all of these self-published books with your own money, which means you run a greater risk of losing money in these ventures, because you won't have the resources of a traditional publishing house that will front the money to do distribution and promotion and printing and coding for ebooks and all that sort of stuff for you, which can be especially challenging if you want to make print versions of your book, because a lot of times the websites and companies that offer such services are doing it as print on demand. So in order for them to make up the cost and for you to make some profit, you'll probably have to charge a little bit more than a traditional publishing house would for similarly sized books that you would go buy from them. So, a good rule to remember, as a lot of people in the self-publishing world have said, is never, ever, ever bring yourself to the point where you have to choose between your next meal or publishing your book. So, make sure you're wise in all of your investments. The next item I like to discuss may or may not be a peril for you, depending on what your creative inclinations are. And that is that you'll have to do all of the layout for your book yourself. Now, the most obvious one of these challenges is creating the cover art for the book, which you'll either have to do yourself or you'll have to commission an actual artist to create it for you, which is what I had to do for Destroyer. Just trust me, there's no way I'm making artwork that looks this nice. This was made by an artist named Tyler Souls. I hired him to do it for me. Everything you see right here was created by Tyler except for the text, which I added myself in Photoshop. Another thing you'll have to do is you'll have to create the interior layout of the book as well. So you'll have to select the fonts and make the margins and decide how much space there is between titles and chapter titles and paragraphs and all of that mundane stuff you'd rather not concern yourself with, but will usually end up making your book look really cool once you're done. It's especially difficult to make this work, in my experience, with ebooks, because you're going to have to select a font that is readable and on multiple electronic devices and format it so that it fits in the screens of multiple e-readers. I mean, it's all kinds of complicated if you really want to get into it. Which is why, if that doesn't sound like something you like to do yourself, there are plenty of people out there that will offer such services to you for some modest fees, and you can find them pretty easily if you know the right places to look for them. The next peril I'd like to discuss is that you'll have to take it upon yourself to get your books onto multiple distribution channels. What do I mean by that? If you make a print book, you'll have to take it upon yourself to take it to your local libraries or your local bookstores in order to make them available in their collections. And unless you can convince them to buy the books from you, you will probably have to do that at your own expense. Now, if you want to do ebooks, you will have to choose which distribution channel you want to make it available on. If you want it to be on the Kindle, you can make it available on Amazon, as they offer services that let you do that. Or if you go with Smashwords, the nice thing about Smashwords is that they will make it available in multiple formats. So if you go on to Smashwords, you can buy an ebook as a PDF, you can buy it for your Nook, you can buy it for your Kindle, lots of different formats. The problem is that as of the date of this video, Smashwords has yet to be able to finalize any deals with the websites for the companies that own most e-readers in order to make them available on that company's website for distribution. So you can't go onto barnesandnoble.com or onto amazon.com and find a ebook for the Nook or the Kindle, respectively, available through Smashwords. However, I'm happy to report that it seems like there is an increasing number of avenues to make books available on multiple distribution channels through it when you self-publish them. So be sure to keep your eyes open for opportunities like that. And finally, the last peril I'd like to talk about is that most likely profits will be slow when you venture into this. unless you've built up some sort of a fan base, you'll have to build momentum as you go. And it'll be kind of a slow burn. So be patient as you wait to make some money off of this. But I will tell you right now, if there's one thing I've learned, and I could tell you several stories about this, there's one thing I've learned, it's that tenacity pays off in the writing world in the long run. So don't give up. Now that we got all of those out of the way, it's time to talk about the fun stuff, the privileges of self-publishing, not the least of which is creative control. You can write whatever kind of story you want, however you want it, and you don't have to worry about the dictates of an editor or agents or a publishing house. All that matters is what you, the author, think and what your readers think. And in that way, you can get stories out there that would probably not even see the light of day if not for self-publishing. Because you don't have to worry about what's trendy. You can just put it out there and help your stories find their audience. And it is glorious, my friends. Another great thing about self-publishing is that it gives you a chance to showcase some of your other creative talents and hobbies. If you're an artist, you can create the cover art for your book or illustrations for your book. If you're a photographer, you can do the same thing. You could also take photographs of yourself or any of your co-authors, like I did, and put them in the back of the book so people will have a face to go with the names. And if you're into graphic design and layout, you would have a blast with self-publishing, because when you make a print book, you can go through and you can go online and select the fonts and set up the margins and everything. It'll make, that way you can make the interior of your book look just as unique as the cover. And if you intend on making ebooks, that will come in, those sorts of skills will come in very handy as you create the tables of content and make hyperlinks so that your book is easy to navigate on different e-readers. So, like I said, it's a great chance for you to show off more than just your writing talent. Self-publishing also allows you to make your book available on more formats sooner. Now, even if you go with a traditional publishing house and they make your book available in print, they may or may not make it available as an ebook or an audiobook because they want to wait to see if your book sells. But if you're self-publishing, you can decide that all for yourself. You want it to be available as an ebook and in print right off the bat? You can do that. You want to create an audiobook of it? You can do that if you have the equipment and the desire. Now, personally, I haven't done that for any of my books yet, at least not entirely, but I'm sure it can be done. And another great thing about it, especially with ebooks, is they never, ever go out of print. They are forever. So long as they are still posted on the websites that you make them available on, say Smashwords, they will be there for people to download. And I would argue the same could be said if you make print versions of them too, as long as you keep them available on the websites where, with the companies that will print them. So your book's availability will not be dictated by the whims of a publishing house. So long as you want it to be available and in print, it will be available and in print. Another great thing about self-publishing is that it gives you control over the prices of your books. So, you decide, not the publishing house, you decide how much you want to charge for your books and how much profit that you want to make. So you could even be crazy if you made an ebook and make it free. There are people who do that. Normally they charge 99 cents, $1.99, however much they want, but they have that option. It's a little bit trickier with print books because you got to make sure you make up for the printing costs and for the shipping. But again, it still boils down to how much you want to charge. Another great thing is that a lot of self-publishing websites also give you the option of creating coupons for your books. So you could generate this coupon number and give it out to people, and if it's a print book, they'll get so much off when they purchase it. If it's an ebook, on Smashwords at least, you could give them as big of a discount as 100% and make it free if you wanted to. It's a great resource to have when you want to do promotion or generate interest in your books. And along with that, as I already hinted at, there are greater profit margins in self-publishing. Now, if you went with a traditional publishing house, they would give you a set amount of money as an advance, and then after your book sold enough copies, you would start making royalties off of the sales of each one of those books, which might be 10, 15, 20% of each book sold, but it is a whole lot higher when you go with self-publishing. With print books, you can decide for yourself how much of a profit margin you want to have, depending on what you want to charge for the book. But with ebooks, it is exponentially higher. At least with Smashwords, you get to keep, I think, as much as 70 or 80% of each sale, because the overhead for ebooks is a whole lot lower than it is with print books. The trade-off is that you don't have the guarantee that your book is going to sell really well, but you can rest assured that you will be keeping a whole lot more of the profits that you make from your book than you would have if you had gone with a traditional publisher. And finally, an amazing privilege of self-publishing is that it gives you greater promotional control over your books. You can decide how, when, and where you want to promote your book, and you don't have to answer to a publishing house or do it how they would want you to do it. If you want to do a viral campaign on the internet, you can do it. If you want to do a blog tour, you can do it. If you want to do conventions, you want to have book signings, whatever. You are limited only by your imagination and your creativity. And arguably, you could probably do the promotion faster and better than what a traditional publishing house would be able to offer you, depending on how many resources they had available for advertising and how much priority they want to give to your book. Because if you're a new author, they're probably not going to give you as much priority as they would to one of their longtime writers or an established writer that they know will sell. So there you have it. The perils and privileges of self-publishing. There are a lot of risks involved with self-publishing, but there are a lot of great benefits with it too. So, if you're feeling brave and you want to be able to answer to nobody but yourself and to your readers, then by all means, true believers, go out and do it. And who knows? You might be just as successful and probably even more successful at it than my friends and I have been at it. There's fine print now under me now, isn't there? Now it's insulting me, isn't it? Well, enough of that. Thank you for joining me this week on You just come in here and ruin my show, tell people they can't be successful at self-publishing? Well, guess what? I fight for the users, punk! Anyway, thank you for joining me this week on But I Digress. This is Marchand, signing off.
End of line.